Hello everyone, I'm Tony Lee Peters. How are you? I hope you're well. I'm very well, thank you for asking. Life is very good at the moment, and I hope it is for you too. And if it isn't, then I hope that you are doing something about it. So, one of the main themes that seems to be running through my client work, especially over the last couple of weeks, has been anxiety and helping people to deal with their own anxiety. So what I'd like to do over the next few videos and for the remainder of this week is to talk about anxiety and share some information and some of the methods that I use to successfully help people with their own anxiety. So if this is the first time that you've watched one of my videos or that you've landed on my page, then please hit subscribe or add friend, follow, whatever it is that you need to keep tuned in so you can watch all of my content this week. And if you do deal with, if you are suffering with anxiety yourself, or if you deal with someone or you know someone who's suffering with anxiety, then please check back because I'll be sharing some really good information, some really helpful and valuable information this week. As usual, there will be a worksheet available at the end of this video. So if you would like a copy of that, just type the words "yes, please" in the comments below, and I will get that to you at the end of this video. So, what is anxiety? Well, the first thing to realize is that anxiety is completely normal. Anxiety has been a part of the human condition ever since humans existed. So many years ago, our ancestors, the cavemen and cavewomen, would have used anxiety in a positive way. So for them, anxiety would have motivated them to fight or to flee from a hunting situation when they were hunting wild animals. Nowadays, it seems that anxiety completely demotivates people. So anxiety now is more about focusing on negative fear, which then promotes limiting and destructive behaviors and thoughts. So the first step in dealing with anxiety and in working towards a life free from excessive worry is to develop awareness and honest acceptance of our own anxiety. And the first thing we can do with that is to list all of the different triggers to our anxiety. So look at and consider the people maybe, or the situations or the things, whatever it is that's causing you anxiety, just make a list of everything. And once you've listed your anxiety triggers, the next step is to look at the different symptoms. And it's worth separating those systems into different categories. And I'll get to that in a moment. But one of the reasons why it's important to do that is because very often, especially when we've lived with anxiety for a long period of time, anxiety can become an automated response. And sometimes we may not be able to recognize, excuse me, we may not be able to recognize when we are feeling anxious or that a certain symptom is actually caused by anxiety. And the reason we can't recognize that is because we are always in the grip of anxiety. Anxiety just becomes part of who we are. So by dividing out our symptoms into different categories, we're able to see exactly how the effects that anxiety is having on us. But we can also trace that some symptoms interact with other symptoms, which will then make our anxiety worse. It's like a big anxiety cycle that we just tend to go round and round and round and round. So the different categories of our symptoms would be to look at how you feel, how anxiety makes you feel emotionally. And then look at the bodily sensations, the physical sensations that are present when anxiety is present. What kind of thoughts do you think when you are anxious? And look at the different ways that you might behave, or the things that you might do or not do when you're anxious. So I will use myself as an example. So this will be taken from when I used to deal with really bad anxiety. So the kind of things that I would feel emotionally would be, well, I would feel emotionally disconnected. I would also feel scared, fearful, worried, nervous, and panicked. Kind of physical sensations that I would feel, I would mainly feel anxiety in my stomach. It would cause me stomach pain, stomach cramps, my stomach would make noises. It was almost like a very, it was like butterflies in the stomach, but on steroids. My face would also go red. My voice would shake. Sometimes my hands would shake. Sometimes I might get a headache. I would also feel quite hot, especially around the head area and the hands. The kind of things that I would think about when I was anxious would always be negative, and they'd always be directed towards myself. So I would think that other people were judging me, that other people could tell that I was anxious, and that in some way made me less of a person. And the kind of things that I would do or not do, the behaviors would be more based around avoidance. So I would try to avoid whatever it was that was causing me anxiety, or that the anxiety was telling me to avoid. So once you've looked at your triggers and you've looked at your symptoms, it's then time to answer the next two questions as honestly as possible. So the first question is, how does anxiety negatively impact your life? So look at all the different things. By the way, if you can hear a noise, it's that noise. It's not wind, it's my chair. I promise. So yeah, answer these next two questions honestly. So the first question is, how does anxiety negatively impact your life? So look at all the different ways that anxiety is having a negative impact on your life. What kind of things is anxiety preventing you from doing? How is anxiety affecting your relationships, your career, your social life, your finances? So look at all the different ways that anxiety is negatively affecting your life. And then ask yourself, how might your life be different if you had more control over anxiety? Because if you're suffering with anxiety at the moment, anxiety is controlling you. You have very little or no control over your anxiety, which is why things are getting out of hand. So how might your life be different if you had more control over anxiety? That question can be quite difficult for some people to answer, because it's talking about gaining control. And to gain control, we need to take responsibility and sometimes face some of our fears. And that can be a scary thing to do. And it can be quite hard to look at what our life might be like if we were to be more responsible and take control. The last question is probably the most important, and it's certainly the most controversial, especially amongst my clients who are quite new to this concept. So I've already kind of alluded to this, but underneath everybody's anxiety is fear. Anxiety can only exist with fear. If fear did not exist, there would be no such thing as anxiety. So think about the billions of people around the world and the millions upon millions of people who are suffering with anxiety. Now, there are only two different types of fear that underpin every single person's anxiety. So think about that for a moment. The millions upon millions of people in the world that have anxiety, but yet there's only two main fears that underpin everybody's anxiety. So my question to you is, what are the two fears that underpin everybody's anxiety? And I will give you the answer in the next video, because in the next video, we'll be exploring fear, and I'll be sharing some of my fear-busting techniques that have successfully released people from the grip of anxiety and excessive worry. If you would like a copy of the worksheet, today's worksheet, which covers the information that I've spoken about, as well as the questions that you can set yourself, then please type "yes, please" in the comments below, and I will send that to you as soon as possible. Whatever it is that you're doing today, make sure you have a good day, and make sure you enjoy yourself. And remember, please be kind to yourself. Thank you for watching. Take care.